Hello, my random viewers, and welcome to Randomly Offensive. Today, we are continuing Xiaoyu's story, and if you haven't missed the previous videos, they will be linked at the tippy top in chronological order, so you can click on the ones you haven't seen and come on back. Now, I am doing something that I hardly ever do, well, actually never do, which is using someone else's music that I do not actually have rights to. So I am going to give them credit exactly where credit is due. This is an adaptation of Gohan's Rage made by Android Orchestra. If you love music and this kind of music, absolutely go check him out and give him the views. Now, with that being said, the reason I'm using this is because Xiaoyu's story at this point hits a whole new level with her character arc, and also just with most characters, Xiaoyu goes through the most character arc development, and I wanted to use something special, and this song just hits me, and I know it'll hit other people in the same way, and it, without words, explains the character of Ling Xiaoyu. And so, I will start this song from the beginning, and we will start the story of Xiaoyu and the death of a child. Feng Wei stands on the battleground watching Jinpachi throw countless blows to Xiaoyu. However, she is dodging every single strike with ease, with no emotion on her face, and her eyes a bright red as she is just stepping side to side and weaving her head to the left and to the right, easily dodging every strike that Jinpachi throws, and Feng sees the bloodlust in her eyes. He can see that Xiaoyu will kill this man, and the memory of him talking with Li comes back right after Li told Feng that Xiaoyu is the best hope they have for defeating Jinpachi. Do you really think that this is a good idea? Do you really think this is necessary to put a child through? And Li looks at Feng. No, but it's necessary, absolutely. We must do whatever it takes to save this planet. Wouldn't you agree? Says Li, and Feng looks down. Her childhood is going to be over after this. And Li nods. Oh yes. The next few events that Xiaoyu is going to go through will kill everything about that child, and she will be a whole new person in about a year's time, he says. And Feng, standing in the present day, watches Xiaoyu, and finally Xiaoyu goes on the offensive, and she delivers a roundhouse to Jinpachi right after dodging a strike, and it twists his leg and snaps his knee immediately with connection of the blow. And Jinpachi stumbles down, and Xiaoyu throws a left hook, dislocating his jaw. She then grabs his wrist and twists it into a kung fu tunnel fold that throws Jinpachi over the shoulders of Xiaoyu, and she separates her legs as she forces her body to slam down to the ground, slamming Jinpachi right after on his back. And as he bounces off the ground from the force of the impact, Xiaoyu grabs the nostrils of Jinpachi's nose with her two fingers and yanks him back down to the ground, tearing two large slits in the skin of his nose, tearing his face wide open. Xiaoyu, having no emotion in doing this, puts her hand in a stern spear shape as she's about to deliver the final blow into the throat of Jinpachi, and Wang screams her name, and Feng quickly looks over to Wang, who is slowly rising from the ground. You can't do this, kid. You don't want to go down that road, Xiaoyu. And Xiaoyu freezes, and then Jinpachi takes the hesitation and quickly swings his foot upwards, connecting it to the face of Xiaoyu, knocking her back. And Jinpachi rises once again, delivering an uppercut to Xiaoyu hard enough to force her to puke up blood. He then grabs her by the back of the skull and slams her face into his knee, and then throws her to the ground. And Fang, watching this, stares back in anger to Wong.
Why the hell did you do that? She was gonna win! We had this!
He says, and Wong just looks at him with pure anger. I will not allow you to follow through with this plan if it means Xiaoyu dies as the child she is. I will not allow you to taint that little girl. And Feng then stands in front of Wong. If you refuse to allow what needs to happen, I will take you out myself. And so Wong gets in a fighting stance. Do what you must, young man, but I'm not going down easily. And so Feng and Wong engage while Jinpachi boasts over Xiaoyu.
So, how did that feel, child?
And Xiaoyu stands back up. It felt great, she says, with no emotion on her face, wiping the blood off her mouth. Go ahead, do it again. I kinda liked it. And Jinpachi is frozen, not understanding what has happened to this little girl. Panda begins to wake up as he sees Xiaoyu, not recognizing who his best friend has become, and Jinpachi charges towards Xiaoyu once again and delivers a massive punch, and Xiaoyu catches it with the palm of her hand as the force of the punch forces her feet to dig into the ground, and the ground begins to crack and crumble beneath them. Jinpachi quickly begins throw and blow and blow and blow, punch after punch he is throwing towards Xiaoyu. However, she's blocking every single one with the palm of her hand with seemingly no effort, and Xiaoyu then does a barrel roll as she twists around one of the punches of Jinpachi, slamming her elbow into the top of his head and then delivering a roundhouse to the lower back of Jinpachi, and Jinpachi falls to the ground. She then grabs him by the throat and takes one of her fingers and shoves it into the eye socket of Jinpachi. With the screams of Jinpachi filling the air, Panda becomes terrified of Xiaoyu, while Feng and Wong are forced to stop their fighting and look at what has just happened between Xiaoyu and Jinpachi, knowing that there should have been no way Xiaoyu was capable of such gruesome harm. And so, as she twists her finger in the eye socket of Jinpachi, with him screaming at the top of his lungs in pain, a smile comes across Xiaoyu's face as her eyes become more and more red, and her face becomes twisted and more demonic as her finger slowly is going deeper and deeper in the eye socket of Jinpachi. As Jinpachi is punching the ribcage of Xiaoyu, he cannot get this little girl to back away, and so Panda goes to hug Xiaoyu to try to stop Xiaoyu, and so Panda runs and bear hugs Xiaoyu. However, Xiaoyu does not treat him like the dear friend he is, as she quickly takes her finger out of Jinpachi. She shoves her elbow into the gut of Panda, grabs him by the top of Panda's skull, and by pure force slams Panda into the ground. And Feng and Wong don't know what to do, and Wong looks at Feng.
Do you still think this was the way to go? Do you really think this was a good idea?
he says as Fang is now jaw-dropped and has no answers for Wong. Jinpachi begins to rise, covering his bloodied eye socket with a hand, as he stares at Xiaoyu, who stands emotionless. And she stares into his eyes with her bright red eyes. "I am going to kill you," she says. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu stands in the middle of darkness as she stares at a figure of herself covered in smoke and is near see-through with bright red glowing eyes. And Xiaoyu looks at her. "You hurt Panda," says Xiaoyu. "You're about to kill somebody. You're about to kill someone's father," she says. But the figure of herself has no response and just keeps staring at Xiaoyu. So Xiaoyu then shouts at this weird figure of herself, "What are you? Who are you? Why are you inside of my soul?" she screams, and the figure points a finger at Xiaoyu. "I am your passion. I am your strength. I am your love and your hatred. I am everything that makes the humans what they are." And Xiaoyu looks at the figure. "No, there's no way you're in everybody." And the figure looks at her. "Why do you think that people are willing to kill for what's right? What do you think gives them the ability? It is their inner demon. It is everything that makes them strong." And Xiaoyu looks at the figure, now angry. "No, demons don't make us strong. It's our goodwill. It's our love. It's the need to do what's right," she says. And then the figure begins to panic as Xiaoyu feels something warm take over her soul, something soft. And Xiaoyu wakes up with the red eyes now gone. She's in full control of her body once again. However, she sees Jin holding her close, hugging her as tight as he can, whispering in her ear that it will be okay and that she does no longer have to do this. And Xiaoyu looks at Jin and passes out. With the fainted Xiaoyu in Jin's arms, he picks her up and carries her to Wong and Fang and tell them to get the hell out of there. So as they leave with Panda, Xiaoyu, Fang, and Wong, Wong looks back. "Young man, you got this? You think you can pull this off?" And Jin looks back. "Don't worry, old man. Xiaoyu did most of the work for me." And he walks to Jinpachi as Jinpachi stands confidently with a smile on his face. Jin and Jinpachi engage in battle, and Xiaoyu is safe, but will never be the little girl she once was. Xiaoyu then finds herself in the very same forest that she met Jin as a child all those years ago. However, when she sees Jin walking up, he is the 15-year-old boy that she remembers first meeting, with her still being a full-grown woman. And she looks at Jin. "Where is this? Where am I?" And Jin looks at her. "You lost everything, didn't you?" And Xiaoyu looks at him confused. "What do you mean I've lost everything?" "I haven't lost anything," she says. And Jin looks at her sad. "No, you've lost all of it. Your hope, your compassion, the hope that everyone will do what's right, it's gone," he says as he plays with his finger in the sand. And Xiaoyu just continues looking at Jin No, I haven't lost any of that, she says, and he looks at her. Then why are you fully grown, but yet I'm a child? The same child that made a promise with you and Panda that we will always do what's right. We will always take the righteous road, and we will never veer away from that path, he says. And so Xiaoyu begins to cry, saying that she is sorry, and Jin just looks at her. It's too late, and I'm about to do the same thing, and there's no coming back. And he fades away as Xiaoyu screams for him to not go. Jin fades, and she wakes up laying on the ground with Wong sitting above her, lovingly watching over her, while Panda lies across from her, not knowing if this is the Xiaoyu that will hurt him or love him, with Feng sitting a distance away with his arms crossed and his eyes closed. She begins to cry and apologizes to Panda and begs Panda for her forgiveness, and Panda gives her a big hug, signifying that everything is okay between the two of them. And she looks at Wong. What happened after I fainted? Is Jin okay? And Wong responds, oh yeah, Jin's fine. In fact, he's in charge of the Mishima Zaibatsu, and he's going to be starting World War III anytime soon, according to Lee, he says. And so Xiaoyu stands up. What do we do now? And Wong smiles. Well, we celebrate. We were successful. So now I'm gonna go to the bar that Lee has purchased and enjoy some drinks. You do whatever you want, kid. And he pats her on the shoulder and tells her, it's gonna be tough from here on out. Take care of yourself. And he walks away. Xiaoyu being left alone with nothing but her thoughts and Panda, she thinks about what she had become and what she was about to do to Jinpachi, and she begins to worry about what she might become in the future. However, before she gets lost in her thoughts, she then gets a text from Lee simply reading, I would really like a hot dog and a Twinkie. I've never had them before, and I'm curious what they taste like. Would you mind bringing me them? Read the text, and so Xiaoyu hops on the back of her Panda as the Panda gives her a ride, and she grabs a hot dog and a Twinkie and meets Lee at his bar that he now owns, but he is outside, leaning on the wall, smoking a cigarette for the very first time, and drinking a cocktail he's never tried before. And she can see that something is bothering Lee as his face looks incredibly sad. And so she gives him the hot dog and the Twinkie, and he takes a bite of the hot dog and savors the flavor, and then puts the hot dog away. He then takes a bite of the Twinkie and savors the flavor, but puts that away as well. Those taste horrible, he said. I've been a billionaire my whole entire life, and I've never tasted the normal foods that average people seem to enjoy so much. And tears begin to run down Lee's face, and Xiaoyu asks him, what's bothering you? What's going on? What's wrong? She asks. And Lee looks at her, still with tears covering his face. Well, I'm gonna die tonight, he says, as he slides down the wall and begins sitting on the ground. Xiaoyu looks at him. You're gonna die? Why are you gonna die tonight? She says, confused. And Lee just continues looking in a forward direction, seemingly at nothing, as the tears continue rolling down his face. I just wanted to live in the moment and savor the last few minutes of my life. He continues talking as if Xiaoyu didn't ask him why he's going to die. And so she puts a hand on his shoulder, and instantly Lee grabs her and pulls her in, hugging her, now profusely crying as if he can't stop it. and he begins sobbing as he's telling her that he doesn't want to die, and that he's not ready to let go of life, and that he is scared. And Xiaoyu doesn't know what to do, so she just holds him tight. And finally, when the tears are gone, Li stands up, tells her to always have hope, and he walks away towards his mansion in the distance. As Li walks to his mansion, he walks by Fang as Fang is standing along the path.
So, today's the day you say goodbye, is it?
Says Fang, and Li looks at him. Yeah, it's part of the plan, says Li, as Li continues walking to his imminent death. Xiaoyu, still trying to understand why Li was talking about his own death, just sits at the bar, wondering, and then she receives another text from Li telling her to go to his mansion and enter the main room in exactly 4 hours. And then she receives another text simply saying, "Look at the left wrist." And so Xiaoyu, not knowing what any of this means, stays at the outside of the bar and waits and waits and waits until Paul Phoenix walks out of the doors. Paul looks at her.
Did you get the text?
Says Paul, and Xiaoyu looks up. Yeah, did you get one too? And Paul Phoenix nods his head.
Yep, it's time to go. Let's go,
says Paul. As Xiaoyu gets into Paul's car, they drive to the mansion and wait until the exact 4-hour mark, and Xiaoyu and Paul walk into the mansion. However, it is dark with none of the lights on, and so Xiaoyu and Paul feel their way to the main room. However, Paul ends up getting lost and goes somewhere else. "Paul, where are you?" says Xiaoyu, with no response. And so she makes her way to the main room, and as she opens the door, there lies the dead body of Li, and she panics, screaming for Paul and running to the body of Li, laying on the couch with a bloody knife on the coffee table. And when she checks his pulse, there's nothing. But then she remembers, look at the left wrist. And so she looks at the left wrist, and taped to it is a chip. And so she grabs the chip, but the door behind her opens. As the door creaks open, Xiaoyu looks and stands up frightened, holding the chip in her hand, and there stands in the doorway Li. She then quickly looks at the couch, and there's the dead corpse of also Li. And she looks back. "What the hell's going on?" she says. And Li looks at the chip in her hand. "Oh, Xiaoyu," he says as he rubs his forehead. "I really wish you wouldn't have done that," he says, seemingly frustrated and disappointed, and pulls out a handgun and points it right at Xiaoyu. "What's going on, Li?" she says, frightened. He looks at her. "I'm sorry, Xiaoyu. There's no way out of this one." And that is where we're gonna have to leave today's video off, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you listened for this long, thank you so much, and if you really enjoyed, please do consider hitting the like and subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. Take care of yourselves, don't get by a meteor, and bye.